This is a Step Beyond the Fire podcast. My name is Cully Lord. I'm a land manager and a wildlife biologist here in my home state of Florida. I invite you to join me on a journey as I seek to document the little-known stories told by those who use fire for the benefit of the land, also known as prescribed fire. So come on, let's head into the field and meet the people where the flame ends and new life begins.
Good day. Hello again, and welcome to A Step Beyond the Fire. My name's Steve Miller, and I'm serving as the guest host while Cully and his wife adjust to having a newborn baby. Today I'm chatting with my friend and colleague, Kelly Martin. Kelly and I met while we were serving together on the board of directors for the International Association of Wildland Fire. Kelly began at college in Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin, earning a bachelor's degree in outdoor education. She completed the technical fire management class and went on to begin her federal fire career as a GS3 at the Apostle Island National Lakeshore in 1984. She started there while she was in college and worked her way up through the wildland fire ranks for the last 34 years. She finished her federal service as the chief of the fire and aviation program for Yosemite National Park. Her federal wildland fire career spans the National Park Service and the U.S. Forest Service, working in 6 different states. She worked on helicopter module, the Redding Hot Shots, fuels and prescribed fire crews, and she served as a Type 1 complex burn boss and fire behavior analyst on various incident management teams. She's committed to sound fire management, and which is demonstrated through her serving as chair on 2 NWCG programs, the Fire Environment Committee and the National Fire Management Leadership Course. Currently, she's vice president of the International Association of Wildland Fire and is a leader in the grassroots wildland firefighter organization. She's also serving on the National Wildland Fire Mitigation and Management Commission. She's a strong advocate for diversity, inclusion, and gender parity through the wildland fire community. Her most recent efforts include providing leadership for women in fire through training exchange, sometimes referred to as WTREX. She's been doing that since 2016. It's a highly successful grassroots fire program aimed at promoting practical and wildland fire skills and networking opportunities for both women and men. So now we're going to just get into some conversation. And Kelly, I know I did an introduction, but I think they'd like to hear in your words how you got started in fire and some of the highlights of your fire journey.
Hey, Steve, really great to be here with you today. And it's been a real pleasure to work with you over the years and excited to be on this podcast with you. I will have to say, like, some of my early memories of fire actually started in Northern Illinois. I spent quite a bit of time growing up there and then doing family vacations in Wisconsin as well. But I remember this was a time in our neighborhood where we had leaves, hardwood trees in our neighborhood. And my dad always said, look, if you kids can rake these leaves up, you can burn them. And so at a very early age, 10, 11, 12 years old, what kid isn't enamored with fire? So it was a kind of an early love of mine. It was just exciting, to watch this magic flame appear. And as a kid, I just really, really enjoyed that. But it really wasn't until I started working for the National Park Service at Grand Canyon National Park that I really started my career in wildland fire. And it was once I knew that this could actually be a job that I could do right out of high school. It changed my world because I just loved being in the outdoors. So I think when I think about my love of fire and the use of fire on the landscape, I think certainly my first recognition and love was really being outdoors as a kid and playing outside and learning about the natural environment. And so it was just a natural progression for me to go from love of the outdoors and then using fire as a tool and knowing that this was a job that I could do out of high school and into my 20s going to school. So that's kind of the beginnings of my journey, and I really never looked back after that.
Cool. And yeah, I like you. Once I got introduced to it, I had the fire bug and needed more. So it was good that I found a job that would enable me to do that. So I see your signature blocks, so to speak, in a couple of different organizations where you and I overlap. And you always have an in there in your signature block, retired. And yet you're probably the least retired person I know as far as all the things you're involved with. And so what is it that motivates you to be so committed to so many things for advancing fire?
It's funny that you should say that, because I remember you saying that to me when I was in um, Madison last fall, and when you said, "Kelly, you are the least retired person that I know," I had to really think about that, and it's true. I think, when we're involved in something that we're so passionate about our entire lives, and we've committed our entire lives to something that is very passionate, when you quote unquote retire from a federal career or a state career, it's really hard to think that is this it? When you walk out the door and your environment has completely changed. You no longer live in the same place. You no longer walk into work. You no longer have your computer. You no longer have your keys. And you just think to yourself, well, there's a lifetime of institutional knowledge that I have. I'm really not young, right? But I love giving back to people that are coming up behind me, that are creating the next generation of fire managers. And I really felt a deep sense of obligation and passion to be able to, as much as possible, just give back everything that I've learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, in my 35 years of working, again, mostly federal government. But I love the idea that young people are getting interested and are passionate about public land management and using fire for good on the landscape. And if I can help in any way, encourage, help people feel excited about this kind of work, it's not without its challenges, as you and I, both know quite intimately. It's very difficult. It's a very, very difficult job. But so I kind of let things come to me. And International Association of Wildland Fire, I've over the years have done some presentations. Now I'm on the board, president-elect after the first of the year. Now I'm really getting interested in the international work. It's really fascinating to see how similar the fire programs are internationally with what we're doing here in the United States. So there's a passion there, and then of course I just have a deep, deep passion and a love for gender parity in wildland fire, but only because coming up through the ranks, it was very, very difficult for me. Very few women coming up through the ranks, and just a significant challenge. And I knew I could do it, but it was so hard. It was really, really hard. So really, I know that there's a lot of great, women out there that deserve to work in this space. And if I can play a little bit of a role in helping increase that gender parity in this type of field, I'm all in. I'm all in.
You talked about the energy you get from interacting with the next generation of wildland fire managers, and the audience doesn't know this, but you know this. I was serving as an adjunct for some fire classes at Stevens Point, and you were willing to teach a class in the subject of wildland fire suppression for resource benefit, which I didn't have that much experience in. I was either prescribed fire or suppression. And I saw the energy between you and the students. It was a synergy kind of thing. And then and you got so into the students, you came back to do emotional intelligence. And I just got to tell you, from watching you with that group and the energy the two of you sort of fed off of one another was so fantastic. Do you see that often in the things you're involved in?
Probably not to that degree, and I'm really appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to work with your students, and have that kind of dialogue, because I really think that young people these days, they're more attuned with what's going on. The information is far exceeds whatever I had when I started, in my 20s. And so, recognizing that the term wildfire has had a negative connotation ever since I started. And so there was either, and even at that point, it was wildfire or prescribed fire, and wildfire was always seen as bad. And that even included lightning start, like natural ignition. So when I talk to college students, especially in the fire ecology realm or the public land managers or public administration, it's just so it's still such a very such an enigma to think about wildfire being beneficial. And then when we start to really unpack that in terms of indigenous and tribal cultures that have used fire on the land for millennia, it's just really exciting to see that resurgence of recognizing that fire is actually very critical and a very necessary element on our landscapes, as is water and air. And so we can have a little bit of fire throughout our landscapes now, or we continue to see these large destructive wildfires. And so I'm really excited that people in colleges and universities are getting really great exposure to fire in a different way than I did when I was in my 20s, and really seeing it as a beneficial force. And to some degree, I think this is a generation thing too. I think it feels like our generation, it's still such a hard mindset to get out of, that wildfires can actually be used for resource objectives and in creating healthy landscapes. And I think that's the excitement that I have with our institutions, our educational institutions now. I really hope that we can think about how we can also get that kind of information started early in a K through 12 program. I think it's really hit and miss, but it certainly seems like it would be part of a really fantastic opportunity to get kids, high school kids, really interested in natural resource management or public land management. It may not be in fire, but it may be in hydrology or fisheries. But fire has a major impact, on those focus areas that these kids are interested in studying more about. So I'm excited, super excited for places like Stevens Point, and I went to Northland College in Ashland. Didn't have a fire program there, but when I was working for the Park Service, we were all fire trained, but not necessarily in terms of the fire ecology and land management. So that's really exciting. And then the emotional intelligence for wildland firefighters is something that I've been studying for quite some time, and it's really out of like, what are the lessons that I wish I would have known, or I would have had more information about in my 20s, and understanding emotional intelligence in terms of where our strengths and weaknesses and social skills and empathy and motivation. These are all skills that we can develop at an early age, and will serve us really, really well throughout our entire career. And I do believe that was something that I missed when I was coming up through the ranks, is understanding emotional intelligence. And now I get to teach it, and be able to have these kind of conversations like with you about what it is or what it isn't, and how we can expand that to every single individual's opportunity to really become more successful in their field. It doesn't have to necessarily be fire.
Well, and the students, when got to the end of the semester and they submitted their evaluations of the course, your meeting with them the two times, once on wildland fire suppression for resource benefits, and the second one on emotional intelligence, were two of the things that they said stood out as the best thing they did that semester?
I think that's really emblematic of education and exchange of information and being able to learn from generations far removed from where I am now. It's exciting, it's very humbling. And I really appreciate the fact that maybe we're helping, again, giving back to the next generation and giving them opportunities that we didn't have or that I didn't know about. And it's free, right? I mean, it's just a conversation, and it's the ability to feel safe in these kind of conversations. And you really created that with your students as well. And it was really nice to know that, hey, there's nothing off the table. We can all have these discussions in a safe environment. And that's where I think that we have such a great opportunity with universities and colleges and even high school kids to have these kind of conversations much earlier than we did, and the wisdom through age, right?
You raised an issue for me, or a topic that I find so interesting. But it's sort of like, I heard once somebody say land management is like chewing leather. The more you chew on it, the bigger it gets.
Oh, for sure.
You mentioned indigenous fire and the ecological role of it on the landscape. And that's one of those topics that the more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn.
Yes.
How did you get involved with indigenous fire, and what are some of the key points that you've learned that you think are important for people to remember?
It's really a humbling topic because I even think about my work at Yosemite National Park where, we were surrounded by various tribal cultures that were very connected to Yosemite. But I really missed something while I was there. I really missed that strong connection between the tribal cultures that called Yosemite home, and how much fire played an important role in their culture and their family and their community. It was after I retired that I was like, wow, I felt like I completely missed something in my federal career in terms of cultural fire practitioners, and it was really I was sad. I was sad that it took so long, and I didn't get that when I was working as a federal employee, because it really is very, very emotional, very spiritual, very awakening for me to really understand the cause and effect and the very spiritual aspect of fire on the landscape. I think we in traditional bureaucracies and organizations, we tend to see, fire is good or bad, and we haven't really been provided the opportunity. Although it's definitely emerging quite rapidly now as we speak, which is fantastic. I love it. But I guess even when I think about my early upbringings with fire and natural resources, I never felt afraid of fire. It was something that I just always was deeply passionate about, because I could watch how fire could transform the landscape in very beneficial ways. And then being able to go back in the following spring and see the flush of vegetation, it just really hit me as like, this is what the spirit and the element of using fire on the landscape is really all about. As a very, it was a missing part of my life, I guess. But even when I was working on incident management teams on large, huge suppression fires, I always felt a sense of responsibility and duty to first do no harm, right, with fire. And so that included, thinking about ways to use fire that could reduce the severity and also maintain, forest structure and forest health and soil stability and biodiversity when using fire on the land. So it's a very, very powerful tool, but having that ability to, so I had that, and I've had that my entire career. And it really wasn't until I started working with the Yurok and their Karuk tribes in Northern California that I really began to see, the impact of how important cultural fire really is to indigenous and tribal communities, in the reason and the need to bring it back for food and basket and medicine and ceremonies and hunting. So it's been this is the great thing about fire, right? Is that we can always learn so much, as we're emerging ourselves in this particular field of work. And I think that's been my greatest growth in probably the last 4 or 5 years, has really been trying to understand how I can be more supportive and understanding of past indigenous fire practice. But we got a long ways to go. We're not. Some of the obstacles have to do with policy and very much, a from a government perspective, in how to, honor the fire program from an indigenous and tribal perspective. I think we have a long way to go yet.
Yeah, and a long way to go, and there's layers of complexity of
Oh, for sure.
understanding the phenology of the plant communities and when fire will do what and all of those things. And then there's also recognizing the scale at which indigenous population was managing fire.
Oh, yeah. They're throughout the US, right? It's not just a Western or Midwest or Southeast, or it's really throughout the world, really.
Here's kind of a hypothetical situation. You're walking down the beach, you find that magic genie bottle, and the cork is in it, and you uncork it, and the genie comes out and says you can have 3 fire management wishes. How would you use your 3 wishes for fire management?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. When I think about walking down a beach, I love beach combing, and you probably saw my Facebook post with a picture of Lake Superior on my cover. And there's just something about, number one, walking along the beach and beach combing and looking at rocks and stones and sticks and different shapes. And it's almost like walking meditation. Of course, I'm thinking about fire, and I'm looking at some of the washed up sticks that show up. But if I actually came upon a bottle and I had three wishes, I think the first big wish is that that as human beings, we develop an innate ability to accept fire, and know that it's not to be feared everywhere all the time. And I think if we actually held that core value, that fire is a part of our lives, and we're a part of fire's function on the landscape, I think we'd be in a much better place to where we wouldn't be having these tremendous, battles or conflicts, with fire, because I think we know that this is the mindset and the culture that really needs to change. Then I think the second wish would be, our ability to really put a lot of our science and research, energy and emphasis into action and implementation. I feel that a lot we have a high degree of understanding and education and science that tells us that fire needs to be on the land. We're getting better at refining where and when and under what conditions. Granted, we can't allow wildfires to run loose everywhere all the time, and herein lies our ability to be successful prescribed fire practitioners, that we can also apply fire at a large scale. I think that's missing right now. That it feels like the easy button to put resources into science and research, as well as technology, you're seeing this develop in real time right now, is how can technology, quote unquote, solve the wildfire crisis? And so people are really attracted to early detection and early suppression without really thinking about, oh my gosh, this is how we got to this place in the first place, was consistently 10 a.m. policy of putting fires out as quick as possible, keep them very small. So I would wish for a shift to really be deliberate with more financial, human capital investment in action and implementation. That actually becomes the larger work that we do, and will far exceed suppression in terms of the number of people and the number of acres burned. That we would now see an equitable amount of people working in this space of prescribed fire, or applied fire, cultural fire, at a level that's commensurate with suppression. Because we know that suppression is a very constricted period of time, although we are having longer fire seasons. But imagine if we could, move people around and implement and take action on a lot of these things that we already know needs to take place. And then I think the third wish is really for what I experienced at a very young age. I had an opportunity to do this work as a career, and I could see a highly progressive career in wildland fire management at an early age. And as you know, we are struggling immensely with recruitment, retention, promotion with our workforce. And I think we have a long way to go. I wish we had, better hiring systems. I wish we had better human resource management systems that would really recognize the value and the benefit of this workforce. Now, does it all have to be fire related? I don't think so. I do see tremendous opportunity for growth and development within the workforce, especially with, folks that are, thinking about entering this career field, but we don't really have a solid path for them like I remember seeing when I started. And so maybe you spend, 18 to 30, 35, really doing a lot of the implementation, both the response to suppression as well as large landscape prescribed fire. And then you want to settle down, have a family, be in a community at 35 to 40. It's very, very difficult to ask, people to continue to travel and be gone and away from home for 6 to 8 months out of the year. So I think we need to be really deliberate about our workforce and our kind of, if for no other reason, to look at the scale and the time period, the space and time of somebody starting at 18 to somebody retiring in their 50s or 60s, that each of those decades has really unique opportunities for advancement. And I wish, and I'm hopeful that by the time people reach, 35 or 40, that they can still have a very productive career working for state agencies, nonprofits, in the field of fire ecology, conservation, land and resource management. Maybe you move out of fire and you get into, water capture and storage, or carbon sequestration, or really trying to address the climate change issues that's affecting our national forests and grasslands. So those would be my three wishes if I ever came upon something like that.
I love that last wish about trying to create a career continuum, so to speak, for people. So if somebody was about to enter into your career continuum, but they weren't sure about sort of spending a career or a life in fire, what's some of the advice you'd give them that would help them decide or know what to do to be effective?
Oh gosh. I traveled around a lot in my early career. I moved around probably every 4 or 5 years in my career during my 20s and 30s, and I worked for two different agencies. And you know, I think getting in early in as a permanent position, which I think a lot more jobs are being advertised as permanent, I think is a tremendous benefit to people thinking about this as a career field. Doesn't mean you have to stay, but at least you start. You can start contributing to your thrift savings plan. Um, you have benefits that you don't have as a temp seasonal position, and work for different agencies. I really like the idea that all of our different, at least from a federal standpoint of view, they have different missions and different places around the U.S. that have, oh my gosh, you know, tremendous ecosystems that if you stay in one place, I know it's really hard to say that, but if you stay in one place, you almost miss that window of opportunity early in your career to experience the joys and beauty of what this country has to offer. I can't tell you how much I've learned about longleaf, you know, pine in the east, and prairie restoration burning in the Midwest. So it's such a joy to really interact with people that know that area really well. If you are going to kind of think about this as a career field, take advantage of being able to move around the country and meet different people. And every time I've ever moved, in the places that I've ever worked, I still have very, very good friends that I've met along the way in these different communities that I've worked with, and I'm super grateful for those kinds of relationships. So here I am, you know, 40 years later, that I'm still in touch and still in communication with a lot of these people that were a big part of my life and still are, and really became very influential in my learning process as well. So the tough thing right now is pay, as we know, and housing. And so I think these are things that our agencies really need to, you know, pay particular attention to, and benefits if we're to, you know, really recruit for the next generation, and then how do we retain them? Big discussions within the Wildland Fire Mitigation and Management Commission, as well as grassroots. That's how grassroots was really established, as working as a, you know, advocacy of communicating, you know, some of these shortcomings with our agencies, as well as with politicians and reporters. But I would hate for people to dismiss this as a job or a career, you know, because we haven't worked out all the reforms that really need to take place. Um, Only you as an individual can really make that determination for yourself. But boy, if you've got the opportunity to go work on a fire crew and spend a summer, you know, developing those strong, um, relationships with people on a fire crew, and going, you know, traveling to different parts of the U.S. To work fire, it's just you'll never forget it. It'll really be a part of your soul.
This is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your answers spur me to have new questions. So I got to pick where I want to go with this, but and so I'm going to take it this way. You just talked about traveling around for the experience and the people you meet, and I know you're very devoted to the treks, and watching you on Facebook, you've gone around to some really cool places. So explain just a little bit about what a treks is, and what you like, or what's been amazing about your experience with treks.
So Trex is a prescribed fire training exchange, and it's really kind of taken on a life of its own, not just nationally but internationally now as well. And what I really really love about Trex trainings is there's so many people that come from very, very different backgrounds. So here I am, spending most of my career with like-minded career people. That was my primary interaction for many, many years. And so when I retired, Jeremy Bailey, who started the concept, who works for the Nature Conservancy. I think he started it roughly 15 years ago as a way for the Nature Conservancy to really spread their knowledge and expertise with other nonprofit non-governmental organizations. It's a brilliant idea, is looking at how do we share knowledge and expertise with people that haven't worked for a state or federal or municipal, government. That's how we normally get our information and training and experience is through a government organization. I just think it's brilliant that this concept is reaching thousands and thousands of people worldwide now. And the fact that, if you have an interest in burning and you have, property that you are interested in doing a prescribed burn on, or you want to be part of a prescribed fire association, there's any number of ways that private citizens now can enter this space of fire that is no longer, it's not owned by any one particular agency for sure. And so now it's a way that people can come in and share and learn in a very short period of time. Now, some people coming in treks may have supervision of the fire program within their primary work, but it's just so gratifying to see people excited, enlightened, motivated to go back to their unit and think about how they're going to take away the valuable skills that they had within a week. Sometimes our treks trainings are 2 weeks long, but it's open, for anybody to apply. And I think the Nature Conservancy even has a website that lists all the different trainings that are going on for the coming year. And this coming year, we're going to be in Portugal, and the following year, we're going to be in Germany, and then the following year in Australia as well, working with First Nation, people. So it's really neat to see that we as the folks that have spent a lifetime in this work, gaining qualifications and training and experience can give that back in a very, very meaningful way that has profound impacts on our communities and on our programs, nationwide. And now we're starting to see it go internationally as well.
Cool. I get energy just listening to you talk about it.
You can tell I'm very passionate about this.
So the other road I wanted to go down that you had hinted at previously was your role on the Wildland Fire Mitigation and Management Commission. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like, and the people you were working with, and sort of give us an image of what that was like?
So it was established in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law by statute to develop a commission made up of 50 members, and people had to compete and apply for a position on the commission. My position on the commission was representing wildland firefighters. There was and there was a number of individuals that represented our federal agencies as well. The U.S. Fire Administration, Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture occupied the space of co-chairs for the commission that has really been ongoing for the last year and a half. We're seated members now until the end of March. And we did submit the report to Congress, which included 148 recommendations. And it's everywhere from home hardening to prevention and mitigation to response coordination to post-fire and workforce. So a tremendous. I've never seen anything like it, and a lot of people are saying that even though it's a huge document, right? I'm sure you've probably tried to pick it up and read it. But so there's a lot of information there, and a lot of people really tend to want to go to their area of expertise, which is natural. But I really found that by serving on this commission, that there were so many different areas that I was a complete newbie on. insurance, for example, of trying to understand the dynamics of what the insurance companies or what the insurance, industry is going through right now in terms of, trying to, provide insurance as well as the tremendous losses that, we're seeing in our communities. So learned, a ton about that. And just the fact that we were 50 different people coming from all sorts of different backgrounds. It just felt like a really rich opportunity to continue to learn and grow about things that is very, very important for everyone who fire touches everybody. And so I really felt like, this commission was made up of a microcosm of the whole, U.S. that's impacted by wildfire. So I really appreciated that. And the fact that it was very, very fast paced. We had a really great coordinators that led our discussions and guided us through the unanimous consensus for these 148 recommendations, which try imagine half of the Senate, right, coming to a unanimous consensus on ideas and recommendations. So that was really exciting and very fulfilling for me as well. And the fact that we didn't reach consensus on everything that came up within our group, and being able to respectfully have that debate in and amongst our peers is also a very beneficial part of the commission. And it really struck home too to think about like how would we create that space of more critical debate, in our work programs, that it's okay to bring up different points of view, because we not only do those have to be voiced, but we have to be able to listen to each other and see other people's points of view. I often think that we get, very centered, or we have a mindset that we have a vision on where we want to go. And oftentimes we kind of forget that there's a lot of other people that are very interested in the work that we're doing. And it really did teach me a lot about collaboration and bringing people along, and having really robust dialogues and debate about issues that didn't reach consensus. And that was the intriguing part of the commission as well, is that we all know that there's just no way that every single recommendation that came forward would reach consensus, but a good majority of them did, and there's a lot of richness in that report for those recommendations.
You even made that sound like it was fun and exciting.
Oh yeah, it was a grind. It was it was I guess I like challenges. I like complex situations. So I like kind of jumping in the ring and having these spars. I'm not afraid to speak up and know that I'm not going to get everything but I at least want a chance to be heard and provide an argument for some of the things that I'm seeing that don't always necessarily mesh with everybody. And you can't. It's hard to reach 100% consensus, but I enjoy the spar. I enjoy the debate. I think that there are definitely opportunities for all of us to see things from a different point of view, and that art feels like it's being lost in a lot of ways, because once you kind of start sparring or debating, people take it personally, right? And it's never meant to be personal. And so that delivery, the impact and intent, also has to be considered when you want to jump into that ring and spar and debate with people.
Well, Kelly, I've enjoyed our chat, as I always do, and sometimes I can almost get a little pessimistic with some of the challenges I face in my work life. And then I interact with people like you who have so much enthusiasm for what they're doing and are making a difference. And so I appreciate the energy you shared. But our time is up. So you got any parting comments you want to make for the audience before we split up?
Oh, I like what you said. I think that we can get in our kind of funk and realize that we can't impact or have an influence on change. And I'd like everyone listening to this podcast to know that you do have the ability to influence and sway people and programs. It may not, you're not going to always get, what you need or want, but that's fine. But it's the fine art of debate again, right? Critical debate and then when you start to see things just, make some minor, adjustments or mid-course corrections, it's very exciting to feel like, maybe I did have a little bit of an influence in changing the world. And, feel proud of the fact that, everything, it's really a tough time. Don't get me wrong. But to me, I feel like these tough times, these challenges that we're faced with, this is what I want to express to the next generation, the current generation, the next generation. It's really up to all of us to solve these problems. We can least afford to turn our backs. So I want people to know that you can face these and step into them in a way that I think can be very influential and acting as a change agent. Again, not everybody's cut out for this, but you've got to give it a try. We just don't have any options in the wildfire crisis that we're in right now. We need the best and brightest of everybody that wants to step into this ring with us to have these conversations, because somebody's going to say something somewhere, and it's going to have an impact and a ripple effect that really will have, a magnitude of effect that will change the course of things that we had previously thought would have never been possible, and it is possible. So each person, I guess, is the parting comment, is that you do have an opportunity to really impact, yourself, your family, your community, your agency, the natural resources, policy, all that's within your ability to really have, a very small but also a very outsized influence if you stick with it. Can't say, you're again that everything's going to go your way. It doesn't, and I'm very humble with that, because I know that I'm the first person to. But I'll try something, and then I'll come back and try it again a different way. After I communicate with other people. So love the idea that we're hopefully creating people that want to work in, or helping educate and motivate people that want to work in conservation and natural resource management. It's such a joyous career field that even with all the struggles that we have right now, I still look back on my career and my life I can't imagine what else I would have done as a young person, and now retiring, having committed my entire life to this, is like, there's just nothing like it. And I'm hopeful that many more, hundreds, thousands more people are able to see that and chart your own path, and find things that really give you joy. Because when you reach my age, you really look back and you just go, holy cow, that was just such an amazing experience, an amazing ride. I wouldn't do anything different.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Kelly. We've been chatting with Kelly Martin, who's definitely taking it a step beyond the fire.